Hi guys, welcome to the third installment to my Tuscan countryside watercolor series, where I am doing one video a month up until May of 2024 in anticipation of my watercolor retreat happening in Tuscany. In this third video, we are going to be painting the very iconic Vitaleta chapel that is located in Pienza, Siena. It's a very popular spot for pictures and just a very minimalistic scene that we're painting today. So for those who are interested in joining me for any future watercolor retreats, self-care watercolor retreats, please, I urge you to click on the link below and just give me your input on where you would like to go, your budget, the things you would like to do, blah, blah, blah. It would be really helpful for the future. We are officially sold out for the Tuscany watercolor retreat, but I'm hoping to have more. So if you can help me out by filling out the form, that would be very, very helpful. I know I've said helpful very much. Okay, so let's get right into it. My colors, I'm going to be using my Daler-Rowney set of watercolors. We've got the sap green, we've got hooker's green, a couple of browns, and for our sky we've got cerulean hue, and then we also have the yellow ochre. I'm going to we've actually done a palette for the Tuscan series specifically, and this is mine. I ended up painting all over it, but I'm going to list the colors I'm using down below. For brushes, I'm using my Princeton Velvetouch number 4, Princeton Velvetouch, Princeton Neptune number 6. I've got 2 Velvetouch number 4s because that's how much I love these brushes. And then we've got the oval wash in 1/2 inch just to get our background nice and damp. I've got my little shell palette by Lisi Arts. I've got water handy, paper towel handy. And last but not least, paper is Baohong and 100% cotton. And yeah, we're ready to begin. So reference for this image, so you can sketch this on your own and also looking at colors and such, is in the description, just with all the other items I've mentioned. So feel free to check that out over there and hop on here and join me. Now, before we officially begin, I want to remind you guys, if you like watercolor and you like painting for fun, please hit the like button and subscribe button, and you are guaranteed to get something new every week in addition to all the hundreds of videos I have on here. Okay, let's begin. We are starting off with dampening our sheet, and we're using the oval brush. And I'm just going to dampen the first half, well, the sky area. So it's not the first half because it's a little more than half. And so right where we're getting down to the grassy bit, I am not going to be dampening that part. The other 2 videos we painted were a little more intricate in detail, and this is why I've decided to do something a little more simplistic, where we're focusing a lot more on blending color and getting smooth results and such. So if you're new to watercolor, this is perfect for you. Sorry, I've got some bits happening here, and this is probably from my masking fluid in the previous video I did with this brush, using on Patreon, using masking fluid. So I'm just gonna have to try and brush this off. Okay, so this is nice and damp. Just make sure everything is damp so that when we apply the color, we are able to get those nice flowing results. Then to apply the color, the first color I'm going to be using is my burnt sienna, because the burnt sienna is a beautiful orangey hue. I'm going to take off some of the green that I have mixed at the top of it first, though, just so that I don't get too much green on my sky, because we don't want that. So I'm mixing a little bit of that over there, and I'm dropping the color in here. Now, because it's damp, you're going to get a nice, beautiful blend. That's exactly what we want. And yeah, I'm dabbing to get more color so I can get a deeper color happening in the sky at the very top. And then as I'm going lower, I'm getting water on my brush. And this is how you kind of fade off into a lighter tone. Now for the lower half, we're going to get a nice cerulean blue. And so washing off my brush, making sure this area is nice and damp, so I'm kind of pulling that color down. We're going to get some cerulean blue. Now this area here still needs to be damp. If it isn't looking damp on your side, just go ahead and add more water. Mine looks like it kind of dried up real quick. Not quite sure why, because this is 100% cotton. Here we go, getting some cerulean, and I'm dropping that in here. Now for your sky, if you wanted more of a yellowy look, you could also have used the yellow ochre, and that works just fine too. I'm not fixating too much about the cypress trees that we have here, just because I know they're going to be a lot darker. So I'm just very roughly going around them. And then washing off my brush, I'm going to sort of really try and get this to blend in so it's a nice smooth blend. So notice I keep washing off my brush because I want it to be a nice light to dark. And I don't want too much of the blue mixing in with the orange, orange yellows. Otherwise we're going to get more of a greenish tinge, which is something I don't want to get. Okay, so once you're satisfied with it, hop back on and we're going to paint the lower half of this and keep this structure along with the trees as the last thing we paint. Okay, so now we're going to paint this lower half. I'm just dampening my sheet again. This time, given how quickly things dried up, I'm just going to do this top portion where this line is here. Actually, it's fine. You can dampen the whole area, because if we get a little bit of blending happening downward, that's fine. We can just dampen the sheet again and then get a more nicer blend. So we're going to start off with the lightest color. So I'm going to be using my sap green for that. And I'm going to use the oval brush because it covers large spaces quicker. And then we're going to build up by using the darker green and mixing it in with a little bit of sepia maybe, or even the burnt umber. So here we go. Make sure that the sky is not still damp. Otherwise it's going to blend into the sky, which is something you don't really want. If it does blend though, don't worry, because you can swipe off the color. Yeah, that is a thing. So I'm getting some nice gorgeous green in here. And we're keeping this very simple, guys, so it's beginner friendly. And if you are a connoisseur in watercolor and you know how to get those beautiful bleeds and blends, then power on and get a little bit more detail if you wish. Okay, so we've got our light green. Add more. And now once I have this, y'all might notice this or not, I'm not quite sure, but I'm taking my number 4 and I'm kind of like swiping off the green that's bleeding into the sky or the horizon. And this is what I mean by swiping color off. Now before this dries up, we want to get some dark greens happening in there. So I'm going to get a little bit of my sap green, mix it in with some, let's get some burnt sienna. Yeah, burnt sienna is right here. Mix that in so we got a nice darker green, and I'm dropping that in there at the top. I just need the consistency to be more color, less water, so that we're getting a nice dark hue. So you see how this is happening here. So I'm starting off very lightly stroking this area and then going thicker as I lay it down here. And then I'm doing some over here as well. And then there's just a tad bit of color kind of coming downward here. So pulling it down there. And then we're going to use the number 6 to kind of pull down some color there as well. You can see some of that bleeding at the top, and that's okay because we will swipe off the color and intensify that a bit more shortly. Let's mix a little bit more color. And I'm dropping more, like a third layer here. And I'm building, this is how you build up the intensity and add more details, shadows. So I washed off my brush and I just extended the color down so it gives me a smoother feel. A lot of this scene is about mixing and blending and just getting smooth results. And so I hope you find this helpful in your watercolor journey as you are maybe starting out or maybe picking up from where you first started out. I'm going to get a little bit more of my lighter color here and kind of add that in. You're going to find yourself blending a lot of different greens, and that always helps with your build-up. So you can see the more layers I add, the darker it looks. You're getting a little bit more definition happening in your fields. And I'm kind of trying to get that nice darker shadowy area at the top here before we move on to doing the structure itself. I'm going to add some of that over here as well before we allow this to dry and then work on our structure. And I'm pulling down the strokes in the direction of how the grass is looking, or how the light is hitting the grass rather. So keep that in mind as you are building up on your painting. And we want to keep this light and loose, so I'm going to stop painting shortly or overworking on this shortly because I don't want it to be super detailed and intense. I want it to just be loose enough where we're using this color or the variations of green to tell a story in a very loose fashion manner. Okay, almost done. When I tell you it is real about letting go and just going with the flow, I've been doing this for how many years and I'm still struggling with the whole idea of letting loose and just going with the flow and not overworking things. Because the urge is there. Trust me, the urge is there. Okay, last but not least, I just want to have a little bit of stuff coming out from this area here. So what I'm going to do is get a little bit of that pending color that I have, and I'm going to lightly use my number 4 and do a couple of strokes just like that here. Pulling the color from the top all the way down to kind of give us that sweeping motion. And then one final thing that I want to do just to kind of give you that clear definition is just swipe this over here. There is a little bit of an indicated line that happens, and so that's what I'm doing there. And then before we completely stop working on this, I'm getting some of the green mixed in with the brown to do our little pathway. Which is right there. There's a couple of lines, but allow things to dry if you want a more clear definition. Okay, so now everything is dried up and we can now tackle our cypress trees and the cute little chapel. So for this, we are going to be using my number 4 because it's got this beautiful, nice, fine pointed tip. And for the colors that we're using here, I'm going to be using a mixture of the yellow ochre and a little bit of sepia hue, because sepia hue is like the darkest and it's got little dabs of that. So the way I'm tackling that is like so. Let me just zoom in so you guys can see better. Okay, there we go. And what we'll do is we'll dampen the area first. And I'm just very lightly taking, like I don't want pooling of water, so I'm just sort of lightly going in these little sections, like the triangle first, then in this little area right above the circular window, and then going downward and skirting around the window, the circular window, and also the door, because those are going to be very dark. And we'll keep that for the absolute last. All right, so now that I have that, we're gonna get some of our yellow ochre, and I'm mixing some of that onto the side because I don't want too much. So just a little bit of that, and then I'm dropping that in and almost kind of like just doing a couple of strokes to allow the water to submerge into the sheet. And then washing off completely, we're just going to use whatever is there to sort of poke around and just almost highlighting the areas with it. Okay, so now that that's done, we're going to get a little bit off our sepia hue, so I'm just going to take that directly from here. In fact, you could even use, you know what, I'm going to use my 0. Which is right off to the side here. So if you can use something smaller, the 4 works just as fine, but I rarely get to use my 0, and this is like one of those perfect areas to use it. So while this area is damp, I am just going in and adding in these strokes to kind of outline the roof, for example, the little columns that this beautiful structure has. And I'm not even doing it in one fluid movement or stroke. I'm kind of just going in little bits and pieces to kind of give it that nice jaggedy, loose feel. And then these columns here to the side have more definition. So I'm going to get a little bit darker here. And then this part of the roof, the right part of the roof here at the top. So then lightly washing off, you can just kind of blend in some of this color to kind of have it give you more of the shadowy effects we're looking for. And then this way it looks a little more natural and loose as opposed to deliberate. So we'll allow this to dry. Let's move on to doing our trees. For our trees, I'm tackling, I'm going to do the base with our sap green. Sorry, not sap green, hooker's green. And we're going to be mixing that in with burnt sienna. And burnt sienna is right here. So getting some of that hooker's green, getting a little bit of burnt sienna to mix that in. And then we're just going to start painting. So similar idea to how we tackled the grass. We're going in with the lighter color first, and then we're going to drop in more of that burnt sienna and build up on the color richness. Now what I'm also doing here is making sure that the edges are jaggedy or just very organic looking. So I'm just kind of moving my brush around like so to kind of get these folds on the tree. The top is tapered, and then as I'm going downward here, again, a little bit more of the folding or the frills, like I like to call them. And now once that is done, we're going to get some more of the burnt sienna. There's my burnt sienna. And drop that in. Now we want these to be super dark, but like a really beautiful dark green. So getting some of that color and mixing it onto the side. And we're going to repeat the same technique that I'm doing here for the next cypress tree. So watch carefully, pause the video, and then come back and let's see how that pans out. But let me finish this one real quick so you can see exactly what that looks like. And the idea to have the light color first and then the dark color is so that we've got little hints of green peeping out, and it just gives it a more rustic, loose look, and you're making the best use of showing a dark color while showing hints of green, which is what it should be as well if you were up close to it. Okay, so this is almost done. We're going to end off with doing 2 little strokes at the bottom to indicate the tree stumps. And then we are done our tree. Okay, so this is what that looks like right now. And we are going to go back with our number 0 and paint our door in. And I'm using, I forgot to mention, sepia hue. And then I'm painting the window at the top as well. And then we are also going to paint in, I believe it's like where the bells are. So it's just at the top over here. So let's just really quickly give this a little bit of more detailing there. And then just drawing in our square rectangular shape that's emerging from here. Be very, very still as you're doing this. And then there's this little area here to hold the bells. Then I'm just trying to see, it's right down in the middle. There's like a divide. You could even use, feel free to use like a graphic marker pen if you wish to do this part, because I know it's like super fine and detailed. So if you don't have that kind of brush control, maybe using graphic marker would be a lot more helpful and useful. And then I know there's like very fine little lines coming out from it. I'm like just lightly grazing over here to make sure I'm able to get that. There we go. And we are pretty much done this part. One more thing I want to do is add some sort of, so I'm going to dampen this area here to indicate a little bit of texture happening. And so so you could use your sepia, continue using what you were using for the top, just to sort of give this some light texture. That's way too dark. So I'm just going to use what I have here and kind of do a little dabby motion all the way around here to give this area a nice textured look. And just like that, we got some nice texture happening. You get a little bit of a, look at that. This color is so potent. You need to do a little goes a long way. And then we're almost done. I'm just kind of doing fine little details, like just kind of adding more lines to the structure to give it that loose detail. So feel free to do that, or you can just leave it open-ended. This is supposed to be a quick, fun little sketch. Not super quick, but just quick enough that you're able to hone in on your watercolor mixing skills and all that good stuff. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, guys. I can't wait to see what you've done. Let me know in the comments what you thought, and if you do end up doing this, please tag me so I can see your work. I've listed all my info down below. And then last but not least, if you enjoyed this, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe button, and stay tuned for the next video coming out next week, which is going to be back to florals. And once again, for the last time, I know I mentioned this in the beginning of the video, but guys, if you are interested in doing a self-care watercolor retreat with me, please, I would appreciate if you can fill out the survey below and help me out with figuring out what you would like to do. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll chat soon. Bye.